Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Stories That Shape Us. If you've been following along, you know this podcast started with one simple idea: our stories shape who we become. And over the past year, that idea has proven itself over and over again. Every guest I've talked to, every personal reflection I've shared, every story I've heard, it all comes back to this one truth. The experiences we go through aren't just things that happen to us. They're the tools shaping us into the people we were always meant to become. Year one was about starting. Starting before I felt ready. Starting when I didn't have all the answers. Starting when life felt messy and uncertain. That was about showing up, even when waiting for the perfect moment seemed easier. But this year, year two, it's going to be all about transformation. But hear me when I say this, because when I say transformation, I'm not just talking about shiny Instagram ready version of it. No, I'm talking about the real, the messy, and often the uncomfortable growth. Transformation is rarely smooth. It feels like losing patience before gaining discipline. It feels like confusion before clarity. It feels like losing old habits before forming the new ones. I want you to think about someone trying to get in shape. The first week of the workout is miserable. Sore muscles, early mornings or late nights, depending on when they lift. They're feeling exhausted. But if they keep showing up, their body slowly adapts. The discomfort doesn't go away immediately, but over time, that discipline turns into strength and confidence. And that is what transformation is. And to be honest with you, this past year, I've been in my own version of that. I've felt stretched in ways I didn't expect. Like life was asking me to grow faster than I was ready for. And here's the truth. It's a weird and lonely place to be. You can't go back to who you were, and you don't fully recognize who you're becoming. But ultimately, that's what transformation looks like. And as I've been thinking about it this week, it really comes down to these three things: honesty, surrender, and consistency. First, I want to talk about honesty. And that comes when you face yourself. Because transformation always starts with honesty. Not the kind that you post about on social media or tell your friends about. It's about the kind that you face yourself in the mirror when nobody's watching. It's about calling yourself out, owning what needs to change, and actually following through, not letting yourself off the hook. I'm talking about the moments when you sit quietly and admit something in your life isn't where it needs to be. Maybe it's your work habits. Knowing that you can procrastinate sometimes, even though you want a promotion. Maybe it's in a relationship. You've been holding grudges or avoiding those hard conversations with the person that you need to have them with. Or maybe it's in your mindset. You catch yourself thinking negatively, self-defeating thoughts over and over and over again. And for me personally, this past year, it hit when I realized I'd been avoiding discipline in certain areas of my life because I didn't want to face the discomfort of it. I told myself I was busy, I was just in a season, or I deserved comfort. That's when honesty forced me to admit that comfort was holding me back from my true purpose. Here's a real world example. I want you to think about somebody who's been in a job for years. They feel stuck. They complain about the leadership. They complain about the work culture, their pay, whatever. They want a promotion or career change, but they're avoiding the steps to take there. Maybe they haven't updated their resume. Maybe they haven't utilized their skills to make the transition into a new space. Or maybe they've been procrastinating submitting new job applications or avoiding those hard conversations that they need to have with their boss. Because Transformation can't start until that person admits, I've been holding myself back. Honesty opens the door to change, because if you refuse to face the truth, you ultimately stay in the same patterns, repeating the same mistakes over again. But the moment that you admit that you need to grow and that you need help, that's when things just can't stay the same. That's when the real change starts. The second principle is surrender. And this is a hard one. It's about letting go of control. Because for me, I like to try and control the situations and be in control of how things pan out. But surrender means giving up your control over the outcomes. It means trusting in God when the direction doesn't make sense. It means moving forward without having it all the answers in line in that very moment. This year, there were some times I wanted clarity yesterday. I wanted doors to open instantly. I wanted life to fit the plan that I had sketched out in my head. But life doesn't work on our timelines. Sometimes we have to be reshaped before the circumstances change around us. Here's another real-world example. I want you to picture somebody that is going through a breakup. At first, it's painful, confusing, and uncertain. They might wonder, why is this happening to me? How will I provide for myself? Will I ever feel happy again? But over time, they surrender. They start noticing growth. They learn patience, resilience, and self-reliance. They discover who they are outside of that relationship. And that is transformation in action. Because surrender isn't a weakness, it's trust. It's saying, I don't have all the answers, but I can do my part and let God do his work. The more you surrender, the more real transformation can happen, because growth starts on the inside before it shows up in your life. The third principle that I thought about this week is consistency, and that's showing up every single day. It is a daily principle, and this is where most people struggle. And I'll be the first one to tell you that motivation, it comes and goes. Inspiration, that fades too. But consistency, that is the true secret to lasting change. Transformation isn't a single decision. It's thousands of small decisions every single day. Those micro moments that we talked about with Mo in episode 3 of season 1. It's showing up when you don't feel like it. It's doing the right thing when nobody's watching. I think back to 5th grade, I tried to play the trumpet because honestly, my childhood crush played it too. I had zero idea how to read music. I would watch her fingers, try to follow along, and pretend I knew what I was doing. My mom would even send me out in the garage to practice because, well, I was really bad. And even then, I kept showing up, not because I loved the trumpet, but because I was disciplined, because I stuck with it and I wanted to be consistent, even if I was imperfect. I later quit the trumpet in 5th grade after I realized music isn't my calling, but that's beside the point. Consistency isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up over and over in every single area of your life. In relationships, it's not one dramatic gesture a month. It's listening, showing patience, sending a quick text to check in day after day. In other areas, it could be practicing an instrument, honing in on a skill, or putting in the work on a project that has been heading over your head. Those small repeated actions add up, and over time, they create what lasting transformation is all about. And truthfully, transformation usually prepares you for something that you can't see yet. When you're in the middle of it, it feels like pressure. Doors close, plans shift, and life doesn't make sense. But later, when you look back on it, you will realize that those moments weren't setbacks, but they were setups. Think about someone getting laid off. At the moment, It feels like everything is falling apart. You feel uncertain, frustrated, maybe even like you've failed. I know, because I've lived it myself. I was laid off for 4 months in 2023, and at first, it felt devastating. I questioned myself. I wondered if I'd ever land somewhere meaningful again. Every day felt heavy with uncertainty, and I doubted whether things were ever going to line up the way I wanted. But here's the thing. That season, it wasn't the end. It was preparation for what was to come. During those 4 months, I had the chance to reflect, grow, work on my relationship with God, and step back to see what I truly wanted. And just when I least expected it, a door opened to my dream job, the one I had been chasing for years, but had stepped away from for one season or another. That layoff pushed me, it sharpened my skills, it expanded my network, and it allowed me to grow in ways that I wouldn't have if I stayed comfortable in my previous job. What felt like a loss at the time became one of the most pivotal seasons of growth in my life. Because transformation often works that way. The struggles, the setbacks, the seasons that feel unfair, they're not detours. They're shaping you, preparing you, and building the strength, resilience, and perspective you'll need in the right opportunities once they finally arrive. Because ultimately, transformation, it shapes your mindset, it shapes your habits, and it shapes your faith more than anything. So, you're ready for the next season? Transformation will be on the horizon. Here's the thing I've also learned, and I love to talk about it. You don't really know how strong your faith is until life stops going the way that you expected it to. It's easy to run, to trust, and keep going when everything's smooth, when doors open exactly how you planned, but transformation, that shows up in the messy stuff. The waiting, the uncertainty, the moments where results feel like they'll never come. I want you to take my brother, for example. Mark recently was applying for his first corporate job after graduating college. Every interview brought anticipation, every step forward, and brought a mix of uncertainty as well as excitement and nerves. And after that final interview, the waiting, the uncertainty amplified, the not knowing if he'd get a call back, it was stressful. I'm sure he was exhausted, and it was just a real test of his patience and faith. But spoiler alert, he got the job. But here's the lesson. What made that moment so meaningful wasn't just the offer letter coming through. It was everything that he went through leading up to it. The preparation, the persistence, the professionalism, and the patience he learned along the way. The waiting and the uncertainty, it shaped him into someone ready to step into that role fully and presently. And that's why Proverbs 3:5-6 is so powerful, as that is our verse of the week. So, Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." Even when we can't see what's ahead, even when life feels uncertain, God is shaping your steps. He's guiding you through the process, even when you don't understand it yourself. Because I promise you this, God has a plan for each and every one of us. So keep that in mind in every season that you're waiting, every moment that the struggle and uncomfortable feelings that you're having. It's all part of God's greater plan for your life. It's building endurance, character, and faith. And so when your breakthrough comes, you're ready to step into it fully, prepared and confident to take on the challenge that God has laid before your very life. Transformation, it also changes your identity. You become a new version of yourself because you can't step into new opportunities with those same habits, mindsets, or fears. You have to sit and let go of those old versions of yourself. A perfect example of this is when I first moved down to Dallas from Montana and had started a new job. I quickly realized that my old routines, comfort zones, and ways of thinking weren't going to cut it anymore. The habits that had worked before suddenly felt too small, and my old mindset, it just wasn't enough. So I had to stretch and adapt and push myself to grow into a stronger, more capable version of who I am and ultimately who I wanted to be. And honestly, those seasons, yeah, they felt heavy at the time, but looking back, they were exactly what prepared me to fully step into the opportunities that I was chasing. The life that you want requires that stronger, wiser, more disciplined version of yourself first. That kind of growth, it doesn't happen in comfort. It comes through the seasons that challenge you, the seasons that push you, and sometimes the seasons that make you wait. But here's the thing. I wouldn't go back to who I was. There have definitely been moments where I wish life was easier. But like I said, I wouldn't go back because the struggles, they build strength. The waiting, that builds patience. And the pressure, that builds your faith. Because living in your comfort zone ultimately doesn't create change, and you'll stay exactly where you are. Think about athletes training for a marathon. Every sore muscle, every mile, every step forward, it all builds endurance. Because the discomfort is what creates transformation. And truthfully, you can't skip the process. Because one day you'll look back and you'll see it all clearly. You'll realize that you are stronger than you were before. More faithful, more resilient, more confident. Not because life got any easier for you, but because you let the process change you and mold you into who you are today. So, year 2 isn't just about my transformation, but it's about ours together. It's not about perfection. It's not about Instagram-ready moments. It's about real growth, real stories, and real transformation. Because God doesn't waste seasons, even the hard ones. One day you'll look back and realize the seasons that you had felt like a setback were actually shaping you into something greater. Sometimes the growth isn't obvious while you're in it. You might feel stretched thin, uncertain, or even frustrated with yourself. But I promise you, those moments are where the real work happens. That's where your habits, your mindset, and your character are being shaped. Often in ways you fully won't recognize until later. Because the breakthroughs, the victories, and the moments that you've been dreaming of, they rarely come without the process. The waiting, the pressure, the mistakes, yeah, it's all part of it. And if you learn to embrace them instead of resisting them, you come out stronger, wiser, and more prepared than you could have ever imagined. So as we move through year 2 together, I want you to remember, showing up, being honest, and being yourself, as well as trusting the process and staying consistent, it isn't just preparation, but it's transformation in motion. Every challenge, every setback, every uncomfortable season is building the person you were always meant to become. And so as I wrap up, I just want to say, if life feels uncomfortable, if you're being stretched, If everything feels uncertain, don't run from it. You might just be right in the middle of a transformational process and on the edge of a breakthrough. So, I just want to encourage you to stay honest, stay surrendered, stay consistent, keep showing up, keep trusting, and keep growing. Because transformation happens day by day, decision by decision, season by season. And sometimes it feels like nothing is happening, the progress is slow, and you might get frustrated or even doubt yourself along the way. But those are exactly the moments that are shaping you, building patience, resilience, and strength. Because the invisible work you're doing now is preparing you for the breakthroughs that you can't see yet. Remember, growth rarely happens in your comfort zone because comfort keeps you safe, but it doesn't stretch you, it doesn't challenge you, and it sure as heck doesn't transform you. The pressure, the struggle, the waiting, they're all part of the process. And one day, you'll look back and see it clearly. You're stronger, your faith is deeper, your mindset is sharper. Not because life got any easier, but because you let the process change you and transform you along the way. Year 2, transformation. Because our stories shape us. As always, this has been The Stories That Shape Us. Join us each episode for real stories, real growth, and real impact. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.